The blood trickled down Olivia Carter's swollen lip as she staggered away from the MacAllister ranch house, her bruised ribs throbbing with each labored breath. It was 1879 in Lead, South Dakota, and she had just made the most dangerous decision of her 22 years, refusing Bartholomew MacAllister's marriage proposal. The ranch owner's son was not accustomed to rejection, especially from a woman whose family owed his father money. Olivia pressed a trembling hand against her face, trying to stem the flow of blood. The setting sun cast long shadows across the dusty road as she stumbled forward, not knowing where to go. Her family's small homestead was miles away, and her legs threatened to give out at any moment. The taste of copper filled her mouth, a bitter reminder of the price of her defiance. "I'll teach you to embarrass me in front of my father," Bartholomew had snarled, his handsome face contorted with rage as his fist connected with her jaw. No woman turns down a MacAllister. She had believed him when he invited her to dinner at the ranch to discuss helping her family with their debts. Instead, he had proposed a loveless marriage, offering to cancel what they owed in exchange for her hand. When she refused, his true nature revealed itself with brutal clarity. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Olivia's heart race with terror. Had Bartholomew decided his lesson wasn't complete? She tried to quicken her pace but stumbled, nearly falling to her knees. "Whoa there, Marigold," a deep voice called, not to her but to his horse. The rider slowed his mount as he approached, and Olivia could only pray he wasn't one of MacAllister's men. Owen Miller pulled his chestnut mare to a halt when he spotted the woman on the road. At 26, he'd seen his share of trouble on the frontier, but the sight of her battered face stirred something primal in him. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his spurs jingling as his boots hit the dirt. "Madam, are you all right?" he asked, though the answer was painfully obvious. Up close, he could see that her face was a canvas of fresh bruises, her bottom lip split and swollen. Blood had dried in streaks down her chin, and her simple blue dress was torn at the shoulder. Olivia flinched when he reached toward her, and Owen immediately withdrew his hand. "I won't hurt you," he said softly, as if speaking to a wounded animal. "I'm Owen Miller. I work at the Thompson Ranch just north of town." "Olivia Carter," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. She swayed slightly, and Owen instinctively stepped closer to steady her. "Who did this to you, Miss Carter?" Olivia hesitated. The MacAllisters owned half the county and had the sheriff in their pocket. Speaking out against them was dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than what she'd already endured. "It doesn't matter," she finally said. Owen's jaw tightened. He'd heard stories about Bartholomew MacAllister's temper, especially when it came to women. Was it MacAllister's boy? The flash of fear in her eyes was all the confirmation he needed. Owen glanced back toward the direction of the MacAllister ranch, then at the darkening sky. If Bartholomew had any sense of shame, he might come looking for her, either to finish what he started or to ensure her silence. "Miss Carter, you need a doctor," Owen said firmly, "and somewhere safe to stay." "I have nowhere to go," Olivia admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "My parents' farm is too far to walk, and I can't." She trailed off, wincing as she drew a deep breath. Owen made a decision then, one that would alter the course of both their lives. "My sister has a room in town. She's a widow, runs a small boarding house. She'll take you in." Before Olivia could respond, the distant sound of hoofbeats reached them. Owen didn't wait for her permission. In one smooth motion, he lifted her onto his horse, noticing how she bit back a cry of pain at the movement. He mounted behind her, one arm securely around her waist. "Hold on," he murmured, and urged Marigold into a gallop, away from the MacAllister property and toward the safety of Lead. Olivia found herself pressed against the solid warmth of a stranger, fleeing from the man her parents had hoped she would marry. The irony wasn't lost on her, even through the haze of pain. She had always dreamed of adventure, of something more than becoming a ranch wife in this dusty corner of Dakota territory. Now she had nothing but the clothes on her back and the protection of a cowboy she had just met. They rode hard for nearly an hour, taking a circuitous route to avoid being followed. By the time they reached the outskirts of Lead, night had fallen completely. The small mining town was alive with the sounds of saloon music and miners ending their shifts. Owen guided Marigold through the back streets, avoiding the main thoroughfare where they might be seen. He finally stopped behind a modest two-story house with a small sign reading Carter Boarding House. "This is my sister's place," Owen explained, dismounting and helping Olivia down. She nearly collapsed when her feet touched the ground, and he caught her against his chest. "Easy now." The back door opened before Owen could knock, revealing a slender woman with the same deep brown eyes as her brother. Margaret Miller Carter, no relation to Olivia, took one look at the battered young woman in her brother's arms and ushered them inside without a word. "What happened?" she asked once they were in the warmth of her kitchen. "MacAllister's son," Owen replied grimly. "She needs a doctor, Maggie." "Dr. Patterson is at the Wilsons' place delivering their baby," Margaret said, already wetting a clean cloth to dab at Olivia's wounds. "He won't be back until morning. Let's get her upstairs. I have a vacant room." The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed and a washstand. Margaret helped Olivia out of her torn dress while Owen waited outside. The extent of her injuries became clear as Margaret gently cleaned the blood from Olivia's face and bound her ribs. "He did this because I wouldn't marry him," Olivia explained quietly. "My father borrowed money from his father last winter when the crops failed. We've been working to pay it back, but—" "Say no more," Margaret interrupted. "I know how the MacAllisters operate. You're safe here for now." When Owen was allowed back in, Olivia was wearing one of Margaret's nightgowns, her golden hair loose around her shoulders. Despite the bruises, he couldn't help noticing how beautiful she was, not just pretty, but striking, with clear blue eyes that held a spark of defiance even now. "Thank you," Olivia said, looking up at him from where she sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." Owen shifted uncomfortably under her grateful gaze. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said with a sad smile that pulled at her split lip. "They wouldn't have. Not against the MacAllisters." He knew she was right. The MacAllisters wielded enough power in the county that most people looked the other way when they abused it. Owen had never been one to back down from a fight, but he wasn't foolish enough to think this wouldn't have consequences. "You should rest," he said. "I'll come by tomorrow to check on you." After Owen left, Margaret helped Olivia into bed, giving her a few drops of laudanum for the pain. As she drifted toward sleep, Olivia wondered what would happen next. Her parents would be worried when she didn't come home, but they had no way of knowing where she was. And once Bartholomew discovered she was missing, there was no telling what he might do. The laudanum finally pulled her under, into a mercifully dreamless sleep. Owen rode back to the Thompson ranch with a troubled mind. He had worked there for 3 years, ever since coming west from Pennsylvania after the war. Samuel Thompson was a fair boss who paid well and treated his men with respect, the opposite of Victor MacAllister, whose wealth was matched only by his cruelty. The bunkhouse was quiet when Owen arrived, most of the men already asleep. He tended to Marigold before slipping inside, hoping to avoid questions about where he'd been. "You missed supper," a voice said from the darkness. Patrick Donovan, Owen's closest friend on the ranch, was still awake, smoking his pipe by the window. Had some business in town, Owen replied, removing his gun belt and hanging it on a peg. Business that left blood on your shirt? Patrick asked quietly. Owen glanced down at the dark stains on his sleeve where he'd held Olivia against him. It's not mine. Patrick studied him for a moment, then nodded. MacAllister trouble? How'd you guess? Word travels. Bartholomew's been bragging that he's marrying the Carter girl from over by Silver Creek. Thought it seemed unlikely, given what I've heard of her. Owen sat heavily on his bunk. He beat her when she turned him down, found her on the road halfway to town. Patrick whistled low. You've stepped in it now, friend. Where is she? My sister's place. Safe for the moment. For the moment, Patrick echoed. MacAllister won't take kindly to someone interfering with his sons. Courtship? Owen's mouth tightened into a grim line. I don't give a damn what he takes kindly to. Maybe not, but Thompson might. We need the MacAllisters' land for the cattle drive next month. It was true. The Thompson herd needed to cross MacAllister property to reach the railhead in Cheyenne. Without that access, they'd have to take a longer route that would cost time and money. I'll talk to Thompson in the morning, Owen decided. Make him understand. Patrick shook his head. There's understanding, and then there's business. Just watch yourself, Miller. That girl might not be worth losing your job over. But as Owen lay in his bunk that night, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't forget the look in Olivia's eyes, not just fear, but a fierce determination that had survived even Bartholomew's fists. There was something about her that called to him, something he couldn't explain. He knew Patrick was right about the risks, but something told him Olivia Carter was worth it. Morning came too soon for Olivia, bringing with it the full awareness of her injuries. Every breath sent sharp pains through her ribs, and her face felt swollen and stiff. Margaret brought her breakfast and helped her wash, handling her with gentle efficiency. My brother will be by later, Margaret said as she brushed Olivia's hair. And Dr. Patterson promised to stop in after his rounds. I need to get word to my parents, Olivia worried. They'll think something terrible has happened. Margaret paused. Something terrible did happen, dear, but I'll send a boy with a message. Where's their farm? Silver Creek, about 10 miles east, the small homestead with the red barn. I know it, Margaret nodded. I'll be discreet. We don't want word getting back to the MacAllisters that you're here. Olivia's stomach clenched at the thought of Bartholomew discovering her whereabouts. What am I going to do? I can't stay here forever and I can't go home. He'll find me. Margaret sat on the edge of the bed, taking Olivia's hand in hers. One day at a time. First you heal, then we figure out the rest. Dr. Patterson arrived mid-morning, a kindly older man with gentle hands and a no-nonsense manner. He confirmed what Margaret had suspected: 2 cracked ribs, extensive bruising, but thankfully no permanent damage. You're lucky, Miss Carter, he said as he repacked his bag. I've seen what that MacAllister boy can do when he really loses his temper. The doctor's casual acknowledgement of Bartholomew's reputation made Olivia's blood run cold. How many other women had suffered at his hands? Does the sheriff know? She asked. Dr. Patterson's expression turned grave. Sheriff Davis knows, but he's deep in Victor MacAllister's pocket. I wouldn't expect justice from that quarter. After the doctor left, Olivia sat by the window, watching the activity on the street below. Lead had grown rapidly since gold was discovered in the Black Hills, despite the area still technically belonging to the Lakota under the Fort Laramie Treaty. The town was a mix of proper businesses, hastily constructed miners' cabins, and the inevitable saloons that followed men seeking fortune. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear the door open, only becoming aware of Owen's presence when he cleared his throat. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, hat in hand, his dark hair still damp from washing. Miss Carter, he greeted her formally. "How are you feeling today?" "Like I was trampled by a herd of cattle," she admitted with a small smile that immediately made her wince. "But better than yesterday, thanks to you." Owen stepped into the room, accepting the chair Margaret offered before discreetly leaving them alone with the door ajar for propriety's sake. "I spoke with my boss this morning," Owen said, turning his hat in his hands. "Told him what happened." Olivia tensed. "What did he say?" "He's not happy about the situation with the MacAllisters. We need their cooperation for the upcoming cattle drive." Owen saw the flash of fear in her eyes and quickly added, "But he's a good man. Said he won't turn his back on someone in trouble." "I don't want to cause problems for you," Olivia said. "You've done enough already." "I've hardly done anything," Owen protested, "and whatever comes next, I want to help." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Olivia felt a strange flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with her injuries. This man, this stranger who had come to her rescue, seemed genuinely concerned for her welfare with no expectation of anything in return. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Margaret, her face drawn with worry. "There's a man downstairs asking questions about a young woman matching Olivia's description. One of MacAllister's ranch hands." Owen was on his feet instantly. "Did he see you?" Margaret shook her head. "No, he was talking to Mr. Roberts at the general store. I overheard while picking up supplies." "They're looking for me," Olivia whispered, panic rising in her throat. "What if they check here?" "They might," Owen acknowledged grimly. "Which means you can't stay." "Where can I go?" The pain in her ribs seemed to intensify with her fear. Owen and Margaret exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between siblings. "The Thompson Ranch," Owen finally said. "It's far enough from town, and MacAllister would need a good reason to come onto our property." "I can't impose." "You wouldn't be imposing," Owen assured her. "Mrs. Thompson could use help with the house and the children. Her last helper left to get married last month." Olivia hesitated. Going to the Thompson Ranch meant putting more distance between herself and her parents, but it also meant safety. And if she was honest with herself, the thought of being near Owen brought a strange comfort. "When would we leave?" "Tonight," Owen decided. "After dark. I'll come with the wagon." "Can you ride by then?" Olivia nodded, though she wasn't entirely certain. "I'll manage." The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Margaret helped Olivia dress in clothes borrowed from her own closet, the skirt a bit short on Olivia's taller frame but serviceable. They packed a small bundle of necessities, and Margaret wrote a more detailed letter to Olivia's parents explaining the situation and promising that she was safe. By dusk, Olivia was ready, though every movement still brought pain. She hugged Margaret fiercely, thanking her for the risk she had taken in sheltering her. "My brother's a good man," Margaret whispered in her ear. "One of the best I know. Trust him." Owen arrived with the wagon just after nightfall, approaching from the alley behind the boarding house. He helped Olivia climb into the back, where he had prepared a makeshift bed of blankets to cushion the rough journey. "Lie down and cover yourself with this," he instructed, handing her a tarp, "just in case we pass anyone on the road." The journey to the Thompson Ranch was slow and uncomfortable, each bump in the road sending spikes of pain through Olivia's ribs. But Owen drove carefully, taking the long way around to avoid the main roads where they might encounter MacAllister's men. It was well past midnight when they finally arrived. The main house was dark except for a single lamp burning in the kitchen window. Owen helped Olivia down from the wagon, supporting her weight as she struggled to find her footing after hours of lying still. "Mrs. Thompson is expecting us," he explained in a low voice. "I told her everything this morning." Eleanor Thompson was waiting in the kitchen, a stout woman with kind eyes and a practical manner. She took one look at Olivia's bruised face and clucked her tongue in maternal disapproval. "That MacAllister boy needs a thrashing," she declared, helping Olivia into a chair. "I've made up the room at the back of the house. No windows facing the road, and you'll have your privacy." "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," Olivia said, humbled by the woman's immediate acceptance. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." "Nonsense. Any decent person would do the same. Besides, I need help with the children and the house. My Sarah is only 12, too young to manage it all, and I can't be in two places at once." Owen stood awkwardly by the door. "I should get back to the bunkhouse before someone notices I'm gone." "Of course, Mr. Miller," Mrs. Thompson agreed. "I'll take good care of Miss Carter." As Owen turned to leave, Olivia called out, "Mr. Miller." When he looked back, she continued softly, "Thank you for everything." He nodded once, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, before disappearing into the night. Mrs. Thompson showed Olivia to a small but comfortable room with a narrow bed and a chest of drawers. "Get some sleep, child. Tomorrow will be soon enough to sort everything out." Exhausted from the journey and the constant pain, Olivia fell into a deep sleep almost as soon as her head touched the pillow. She dreamed of running through endless fields, pursued by a faceless rider, only to be swept onto another horse by a man whose face she couldn't see but whose presence brought immediate safety. She woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the sound of children's voices outside her window. For a moment, she was disoriented, the unfamiliar room confusing her sleep-fogged mind. Then the pain in her ribs reminded her of everything that had happened. A soft knock at the door preceded Mrs. Thompson's entrance with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Carter. I thought you might prefer to eat in here today." "Thank you," Olivia said, struggling to sit up, "but please call me Olivia." "And I'm Eleanor," the older woman replied with a warm smile. "Now eat up. You need your strength to heal." After breakfast, Eleanor introduced Olivia to her 3 children: Sarah, the oldest at 12, Daniel, a serious 10-year-old, and Emma, a precocious 6-year-old who immediately took to Olivia, fascinated by her bruises and full of questions that Eleanor gently deflected. "Once you're feeling better, you can help with the house and the children's lessons," Eleanor explained. "My husband, Samuel, is often busy with the ranch, and I help with the accounts and correspondence." "I'd be glad to help in any way I can," Olivia assured her. "I taught at the school in Lead for a season before her father's crops failed and the family's financial troubles began. Before Bartholomew MacAllister set his sights on her, seeing not a woman but a possession to be acquired." Eleanor seemed to understand her unfinished thought. "Well, the children will benefit from your experience then. For now, rest. Doctor's orders." Olivia spent the day recuperating, sitting on the small porch at the back of the house where she was hidden from the main yard. The Thompson ranch was smaller than the MacAllister spread, but well-maintained, with neat outbuildings and healthy livestock. From her vantage point, she could see the distant figures of cowboys working with the cattle, but she didn't spot Owen among them. She was disappointed by his absence, then immediately chided herself for the feeling. Owen Miller was merely being kind to someone in distress. There was no reason to expect anything more from him, or to want it. Yet when he appeared at the house that evening for supper, invited by Eleanor to join the family at the main table rather than eating with the other ranch hands, Olivia couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her at the sight of him. He had cleaned up, his dark hair still damp from washing, his blue cotton shirt fresh. He nodded politely to her as he took his seat across the table. "Miss Carter, good to see you up and about." "Thanks to you, Mr. Miller," she replied. Samuel Thompson, a weathered man with laugh lines around his eyes, raised an eyebrow at the exchange but said nothing. Throughout the meal, Olivia was aware of Owen's gaze returning to her repeatedly, though he spoke mainly with Samuel about ranch business. After supper, while Alina was settling the children for bed, Samuel invited Owen to join him for a smoke on the front porch. Olivia remained at the table, helping Sarah clear the dishes despite the girls' protests that she should rest. Through the open window, she could hear the men's conversation. "MacAllister sent one of his boys over today," Samuel was saying. "Asking if we'd seen a young woman with golden hair, claimed she was his son's fiancée who'd gone missing." "What did you tell him?" Owen's voice was tense. "That I mind my own business and expect others to do the same." Samuel paused. "But this won't end here. Victor MacAllister isn't a man who takes no for an answer, and neither is his son." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything, just stating facts. The girl can stay as long as she needs to, but we need to be prepared for trouble." Olivia's hands trembled as she dried a plate. The MacAllisters were looking for her, as she had feared. How long before they thought to check the Thompson ranch, and what would happen to the Thompsons when they did? Her thoughts were interrupted by Owen entering the kitchen. He stopped short when he saw her, a flash of concern crossing his face. "You heard," he guessed. Olivia nodded. "I can't stay here. I'm putting everyone at risk." "Nonsense," Alina said firmly from the doorway, having overheard. "This is our home and we decide who stays in it. The MacAllisters don't rule here." "But they're powerful," Olivia argued. "They could make trouble for your husband for the ranch." "Let them try," Alina said with surprising steel in her voice. "Samuel Thompson doesn't scare easily, and neither do I." Owen stepped closer to Olivia. "Mrs. Thompson is right. You're safer here than anywhere else right now." The certainty in his voice steadied her. "Thank you, all of you." Later, as Olivia prepared for bed, there was a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find Owen standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted to check that you were all right," he said, "after what you overheard." "I'm fine," she assured him, though it wasn't entirely true. "Just worried about bringing trouble to people who have been nothing but kind to me." Owen's gaze softened. "The Thompsons know what they're doing, and so do I." "Why are you helping me?" Olivia asked suddenly. "You don't even know me." He seemed taken aback by the question. "I know enough," he finally said. "I know you didn't deserve what happened to you, and I know that standing by while someone suffers isn't something I can do." There was a story there, Olivia thought, something in his past that drove his sense of justice. But before she could ask, he stepped back. "Good night, Miss Carter." "Olivia," she corrected him. "Please call me Olivia." A small smile touched his lips. "Olivia, good night." "Good night, Owen." As she closed the door, Olivia realized it was the first time she had used his given name. It felt right on her lips, familiar somehow, as if she had been saying it all her life. The next week passed in a gentle rhythm as Olivia's body began to heal. The bruises on her face faded from angry purple to sickly yellow, and the constant pain in her ribs subsided to a dull ache that flared only when she moved too quickly. She began helping with the children's lessons in the mornings and assisting Alina with household tasks in the afternoons. Owen came to the house each evening for supper, a special privilege granted by Samuel Thompson, who seemed to understand without being told that there was something growing between his ranch hand and their guest. Their conversations over meals were polite, but charged with an unspoken awareness, each learning about the other in careful increments. She learned that Owen had fought for the Union in the war despite being barely 17 when he enlisted, lying about his age to join. He had come west afterward, unable to settle back into his former life in Pennsylvania. He spoke little of his family beyond Margaret, and Olivia sensed there were wounds there that had not yet healed. In turn, she told him about her childhood on the small farm near Silver Creek, her brief time teaching at the school in Lead, her dreams of someday seeing more of the world than just Dakota territory. "Why did you stay?" he asked one evening as they sat on the back porch after supper. The children were in bed, and the Thompsons had tactfully given them some privacy while remaining within sight in the kitchen. "My parents needed me," Olivia explained, watching the sunset paint the distant hills gold and crimson. "After my brother died of fever 2 years ago, they were lost. I couldn't leave them then." Owen nodded in understanding. "And now?" She turned to look at him, struck again by the quiet strength in his features. "Now I don't know what happens next. I can't go home. Bartholomew would find me there. I can't stay here forever, imposing on the Thompsons' kindness." "You're not imposing," Owen said quickly. "They value your help with the children. Mrs. Thompson says Sarah has learned more from you in a week than in 3 months at the school in town." Olivia smiled at the compliment. "Still, this can't be permanent. And the MacAllisters won't simply forget about me." Owen's expression darkened. "No, they won't." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the unresolved situation hanging between them. "There's a letter for you," Owen finally said, reaching into his pocket. "From your parents. One of our men picked it up in town today." Olivia took the envelope with trembling fingers. "Thank you." "I'll give you some privacy," Owen said, standing to leave. "No." Olivia reached for his hand without thinking. "Stay, please." He sat back down, his hand warm against hers. She opened the letter with her free hand, unwilling to break the connection between them. The letter was brief but heartfelt. Her parents were relieved to know she was safe but terrified of what the MacAllisters might do. Victor MacAllister had already visited their farm, threatening to call in their debt immediately if Olivia didn't return to marry his son. They didn't have the money to pay, and the farm would be lost. "He's using them to get to me," Olivia whispered, tears filling her eyes. "I can't let them lose everything because of my choice." Owen squeezed her hand. "What are you thinking? That maybe I should go back, agree to his terms?" The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "No." Owen's response was immediate and vehement. "That's not an option." "Then what?" Olivia demanded, a flash of anger breaking through her fear. "Let my parents lose their home. Let the MacAllisters destroy their lives because I was too proud to accept a marriage proposal." "It wasn't pride," Owen countered, his voice fierce. "It was self-preservation. You know what kind of man Bartholomew is, what kind of husband he would be." The truth of his words cut through her anger. She had seen Bartholomew's true nature in the moment he struck her, and she knew that a life with him would be a slow death of the spirit, if not the body. "There has to be another way," Owen continued more gently. "How much do your parents owe?" $300, Olivia replied. "It might as well be 3,000 for all we can pay it." Owen was quiet for a moment, considering. "I have some savings, not enough, but it's a start." Olivia stared at him in shock. "You would do that? For people you've never met?" His eyes met hers, unwavering. "For you, Olivia, I would do it for you." The simple declaration stole her breath. No man had ever looked at her the way Owen was looking at her now, as if she were something precious, something worth sacrificing for. Before she could respond, Samuel Thompson appeared in the doorway. "Miller, there's a rider coming. One of MacAllister's men by the look of him." Owen was on his feet instantly, his hand going to the gun at his hip. "Get inside," he told Olivia. "Stay with Mrs. Thompson." Heart pounding, Olivia hurried into the house. Eleanor was waiting in the kitchen, her own shotgun propped against the wall nearby. "The children?" Olivia asked. "Asleep upstairs. Sarah knows to keep them in the back room if there's trouble." They waited in tense silence, straining to hear the conversation outside. After what seemed an eternity, the sound of hoofbeats receded, and Samuel and Owen returned to the house. "MacAllister's foreman," Samuel explained, his expression grave. "Carrying a message for Miss Carter," he said. "What message?" Olivia asked, dreading the answer. "Bartholomew wants to meet," Owen said, his jaw tight with anger. "Tomorrow at noon, neutral ground the church in Lead." "It's a trap," Eleanor declared. "You can't go." "If I don't, he'll assume I'm here," Olivia reasoned. "He could come with more men, force his way in." "Let him try," Samuel said grimly, patting his gun. "No," Olivia shook her head. "I won't have violence because of me." "There's been enough of that already." Owen studied her face. "You're not thinking of going, are you?" "I'm thinking I need to end this one way or another." "Then I'm going with you," Owen said in a tone that brooked no argument. "We both will," Samuel added. "MacAllister's boy is less likely to try something with witnesses present." Olivia looked between the two men, overwhelmed by their willingness to protect her. "Thank you," she said simply, knowing there were no adequate words for what she felt. That night sleep eluded her. She lay awake, thinking about the meeting ahead and what it might mean for her future. Would Bartholomew offer terms, threaten her parents again, try to force her to go with him? And what of Owen? The way he had looked at her, the things he had said. Was it possible that in the midst of all this danger, she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for? Morning came too quickly. Eleanor helped Olivia dress in her best borrowed clothes, a simple blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes. Her face was healing, the bruises now faint enough to be partially hidden with a touch of powder. "Remember," Eleanor said as she pinned Olivia's hair, "you have choices. Whatever happens today, you don't have to face it alone." Owen and Samuel were waiting by the wagon, both armed and solemn. Owen helped Olivia up to the seat, his touch lingering longer than necessary. "Stay close to me," he murmured, "no matter what happens." The journey to Lead was tense, none of them speaking much. Olivia's mind raced with possibilities, each scenario worse than the last. By the time the church steeple came into view, her hands were trembling in her lap. Owen noticed and covered them with one of his own. "It will be all right," he assured her, though they both knew he couldn't promise that. The church stood at the edge of town, a simple white building with a small graveyard beside it. Bartholomew MacAllister was waiting on the steps, flanked by two of his father's ranch hands. His handsome face was set in lines of anger, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, as if he hadn't been sleeping well. Olivia felt a surge of satisfaction at the thought that she had disrupted his peace as much as he had disrupted hers. Samuel pulled the wagon to a stop a safe distance away. Owen jumped down first, then helped Olivia, keeping her partially behind him as they approached. Samuel followed a step behind, his hand never far from his gun. "Olivia," Bartholomew called, ignoring the men with her. "You've led me on quite a chase." "It wasn't my intention to be chased, Mr. MacAllister," she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "What do you want?" His eyes hardened at her direct question. "What's rightfully mine? You agreed to marry me." "I did no such thing," Olivia contradicted him. "I refused your proposal and you responded with violence." Bartholomew's gaze flicked to Owen, then back to her. "I see you found yourself a protector. How touching." His tone made the word an insult. "Does he know you're practically engaged to another man?" "There is no engagement," Olivia stated firmly. "There never was." "Your parents seem to think differently," Bartholomew said with a cold smile. "They've already announced our upcoming nuptials to several neighbors." "Would you make them liars?" It was a lie, Olivia knew. Her parents would never have done such a thing without her consent, but the implication was clear. He was trying to pressure her through her family's reputation as well as their financial situation. Owen stepped forward, his patience clearly at an end. Enough games, MacAllister. Miss Carter has made her position clear. She's not marrying you. Bartholomew's expression darkened. This doesn't concern you, Cowboy. This is between me and my fiancée. She is not your fiancée, Owen bit out. And it became my concern when I found her beaten on the road. The two men faced each other, tension crackling between them like lightning before a storm. Olivia feared they would come to blows right there on the church steps. "Stop it, both of you," she said, stepping between them. She turned to face Bartholomew directly. "I will never marry you, Mr. MacAllister. Not if you were the last man in Dakota Territory." Bartholomew's face contorted with rage, and for a moment, Olivia thought he might strike her again, even with witnesses present. But he controlled himself with visible effort. "Your parents owe my father a substantial sum," he said coldly. "Without my intervention, they'll lose everything. Is your pride worth their home?" Before Olivia could respond, Samuel Thompson stepped forward. "I believe I can offer a solution to that problem." All eyes turned to the rancher, who continued calmly, "I've been looking to expand my herd. MacAllister has some breeding stock I've had my eye on. I'm prepared to make an offer that would more than cover the Carter debt." Bartholomew looked taken aback. "My father doesn't sell to competitors." "Business is business," Samuel replied, "and I'm offering above market value. Your father is many things, but he's not a fool with money." Olivia stared at Samuel in amazement. He was offering to help her parents, potentially risking his relationship with the most powerful rancher in the county. Bartholomew seemed to realize he was losing ground. His eyes narrowed as he looked between Owen and Olivia, noting how close they stood, how Owen's hand had found its way to the small of her back in a protective gesture. "I see how it is," he said with sudden understanding. "You found yourself a new prospect." "Tell me, Olivia, does he know about your condition?" Olivia froze. "What condition?" Bartholomew smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Why, that you're carrying my child, of course." The lie was so unexpected, so outrageous that Olivia could only gape at him in shock. Owen tensed beside her, and she could feel the sudden doubt radiating from him. "That's not true," she finally managed, her voice shaking with anger. "How dare you? We spent quite some time alone at my father's ranch," Bartholomew continued smoothly. "Who knows what these good people will believe, especially when your belly starts to swell in a few months." The implication was clear. He was threatening to destroy her reputation, to spread lies that would make her an outcast, unmarriageable. In 1879 Dakota Territory, there were few worse fates for a woman. Before Olivia could respond, Owen stepped forward, his face a mask of cold fury. "If you spread that lie about Miss Carter, you'll answer to me." "And me," Samuel added, his hand now resting openly on his gun. Bartholomew seemed to realize he had pushed too far. The confidence in his expression wavered slightly. "This isn't over," he warned, backing toward his horse. "My father won't deal with Thompson Ranch after this. And you," he pointed at Olivia, "you'll regret choosing a Cowboy over a MacAllister." They watched in tense silence as Bartholomew and his men mounted and rode away, dust rising in their wake. Once they were out of sight, Olivia's knees nearly buckled with relief. Owen caught her arm, steadying her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his eyes searching her face. "Yes," she said, though her heart was still racing. "Just, thank you, both of you." Samuel nodded acknowledgement. "Let's get back to the ranch. I need to write to Victor MacAllister about that cattle offer before his son can poison the well." The ride back was quieter than the journey in, each of them processing what had happened. Olivia noticed that Owen seemed distant, his earlier warmth replaced by a thoughtful reserve that worried her. When they arrived at the ranch, Samuel went immediately to his office to draft his letter, leaving Olivia and Owen alone by the wagon. "Owen," Olivia ventured when the silence between them grew too heavy. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, not quite meeting her eyes. "Nothing, I need to check on Marigold. She was favoring her left front leg this morning." Before Olivia could respond, he walked away toward the stables, leaving her standing alone and confused. Eleanor found her still standing there moments later. "What happened? Did MacAllister cause trouble?" Olivia explained everything: Bartholomew's threats, Samuel's unexpected offer, and the terrible lie that had been meant to damage her reputation. As she spoke, Eleanor's expression grew increasingly indignant. "The nerve of that man!" she exclaimed when Olivia finished. "To make such an accusation in front of God's house, no less." "I think Owen believed him," Olivia said quietly, the real source of her distress finally emerging. "He's barely looked at me since." Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. "Oh, my dear, men can be such fools sometimes. Give him time to think it through. Owen Miller is smarter than most. He'll see the truth." But Owen didn't come to the house for supper that evening, sending word that he was needed for night watch on the herd. Olivia picked at her food, her appetite gone, worrying that Bartholomew's lie had destroyed whatever had been growing between her and Owen before it had a chance to fully bloom. The next morning, she was helping Sarah with her reading lesson when there was a commotion in the yard. Looking out the window, she saw a wagon pulling up, driven by a middle-aged couple she recognized immediately. "My parents," she gasped, dropping the book and rushing outside. Olivia's mother, Rebecca Carter, was out of the wagon before it fully stopped, her arms outstretched to gather her daughter in a fierce embrace. Her father, John, followed more slowly, his weathered face tight with emotion. "Oh, Livy," Rebecca cried, holding Olivia at arm's length to examine her healing bruises. "What that monster did to you." "I'm all right, Mama," Olivia assured her, though tears were streaming down her face. "How did you know I was here?" "Mr. Thompson sent a rider early this morning," John explained, finally reaching them and wrapping both women in his arms. "Said it was safe to come see you." Eleanor appeared at the door, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, please come in. You must be exhausted from your journey." Over coffee at the kitchen table, Olivia learned that Samuel had done more than just invite her parents for a visit. He had gone directly to Victor MacAllister with his offer for the breeding stock, making it clear that part of the deal would include forgiveness of the Carter debt. MacAllister agreed, Olivia asked, astonished. "Reluctantly," John admitted. "But Mr. Thompson was offering far more than we owed. Even Victor MacAllister couldn't turn down that kind of profit." "What about Bartholomew?" Olivia couldn't help asking. "What did he say about this arrangement?" Rebecca and John exchanged a glance. "There was some kind of altercation at the MacAllister ranch last night," Rebecca said carefully. "We don't know the details, but there are rumors in town that Bartholomew has been sent to stay with relatives in Denver for a while." Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Bartholomew was gone, at least for now. Her parents were free from their debt to the MacAllisters. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe without fear constricting her chest. "And what about you, Livy?" her father asked. "Will you come home now that the danger has passed?" The question caught her off guard. She had been so focused on surviving day to day that she hadn't thought about what would come next. The logical answer was yes, of course she would go home. But something held her back from saying the words, or someone. I need some time to think," she said finally. "Mrs. Thompson has been kind enough to give me a position helping with the children. I'd like to honor that commitment for a little while longer." If her parents were surprised by her hesitation, they didn't show it. They stayed for most of the day, catching up on everything that had happened since she left home. When they finally prepared to leave, promising to return soon, Olivia walked them to their wagon. "There's something else keeping you here, isn't there?" her mother asked softly as John checked the harness. "Or someone?" Olivia felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Maybe, but I don't know if he feels the same way, especially after yesterday." Rebecca studied her daughter's face. "Is he a good man?" "The best I've ever known," Olivia answered without hesitation. "Then he'll come around," her mother said with confidence. "A good man recognizes the truth when he sees it." After her parents left, Olivia found herself wandering toward the stables, drawn by the need to see Owen, to clear the air between them. She found him brushing down Marigold, his back to the door. "Your parents seem like good people," he said without turning, somehow knowing it was her. "They are," Olivia agreed, stepping inside. "They wanted me to come home with them." Now he did turn, his expression carefully neutral. "Will you go? I told them I'd stay a while longer, to help with the children." Owen nodded, returning his attention to the horse. "That's good of you." The distance between them felt like a physical thing, stretching the few feet of stable floor into miles. Olivia gathered her courage and bridged it. "Owen, about what Bartholomew said yesterday, you don't owe me any explanations," he interrupted, still not looking at her. "Yes, I do," she insisted, "because it matters to me what you think." That got his attention. He finally met her gaze, his eyes troubled. "What I think doesn't change the facts." "The facts," Olivia repeated, stepping closer. "The fact is that Bartholomew MacAllister is a liar. I have never been with him or any man that way. He was trying to hurt me, to damage my reputation so no decent man would want me." Owen's expression softened slightly. "I know." "You know?" Olivia blinked in surprise. "Then why have you been avoiding me?" He set the brush down with deliberate care. "Because knowing it was a lie doesn't change how I felt when he said it. I wanted to kill him, Olivia. Right there on the church steps, in front of God and everyone. That kind of anger. It scared me." Understanding dawned. Owen wasn't doubting her, he was doubting himself, his own reaction to Bartholomew's provocation. "You didn't, though," she pointed out. "You controlled yourself." "Barely." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she was coming to recognize. "My father was like that, quick to anger, quicker to violence. I swore I'd never become him." Olivia moved closer still, until she was standing directly in front of him. "Wanting to protect someone you care about doesn't make you like your father, it makes you human." Their eyes met and held. Something shifted in Owen's expression, a softening, a surrender to what had been growing between them since that first night on the dusty road. "Someone I care about," he repeated softly. "Is that what you think this is? Isn't it?" Olivia challenged, her heart pounding. Instead of answering with words, Owen reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't, he cupped her face in his hands with exquisite gentleness, mindful of her healing bruises. "I've been fighting this since the moment I found you," he admitted, his voice low and rough with emotion. "Telling myself it was just concern, just the decent thing to do. And now," Olivia whispered, hardly daring to breathe, "now I'm done fighting." He leaned forward, hesitating just a breath away from her lips. "If this is what you want too." In answer, Olivia closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened as months of lonely wandering gave way to the recognition of having finally found home. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I'm a cowboy with nothing to my name but a horse and whatever I can save from my wages," he warned her. "I can't offer you much of a life." "You already gave me the most important thing," Olivia told him. A future of my own choosing. Owen smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face and made him look years younger. Then I'd like to be part of that future, if you'll have me. Their second kiss was interrupted by the sound of someone clearing their throat at the stable door. They sprang apart to find Samuel Thompson watching them with barely concealed amusement. "Mrs. Thompson sent me to find Miss Carter for supper," he explained. "Should I tell her you're otherwise occupied?" Olivia blushed furiously, but Owen just laughed, keeping one arm around her waist. "Tell her we'll be right in, sir." As Samuel walked away, Olivia buried her face against Owen's chest. "He's going to tell Eleanor everything." "Good," Owen said, surprising her. "Saves me the trouble of announcing my intentions." "Intentions?" Olivia pulled back to look at him. "That sounds very serious, Mr. Miller." "It is, Miss Carter," he confirmed, his expression turning solemn. "I know it's fast, maybe too fast after everything you've been through, but I'm not a man who believes in wasting time once I know what I want." "And what is it you want?" she asked, though she thought she knew the answer. "You," he said simply, "for as long as you'll have me." The autumn leaves were just beginning to turn when Owen and Olivia were married in the small church in Leeds, the same church where Bartholomew MacAllister had threatened her months before. The transformation of the place from a scene of fear to one of joy seemed fitting somehow, a reflection of the journey Olivia herself had made. Eleanor Thompson had insisted on hosting the wedding supper at the ranch, transforming the barn into a festive hall with lanterns and wildflowers. The entire Thompson family was there, along with Olivia's parents, Owen's sister Margaret, and the ranch hands who had become friends over the summer. "Mrs. Miller," Owen murmured in her ear as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. "How does it sound?" "Perfect," Olivia replied, smiling up at him, "though I still can't believe how quickly everything happened. It had been a whirlwind courtship by conventional standards." After acknowledging their feelings for each other, Owen had spoken to Samuel Thompson about his plans, and to Olivia's surprise, the rancher had offered them a small cabin on the property. It needed work, but with the help of the other cowboys, Owen had repaired the roof and walls, added a proper stone chimney, and even built a small porch where they could sit in the evenings. "I would have married you the day after I kissed you in the stable," Owen admitted now, his arms tightening around her. "But I thought you deserved a proper courtship." 3 months is hardly proper by some standards," Olivia teased. "My mother nearly fainted when we told her the date." "But she came around." "She did," Olivia agreed, glancing over to where her parents were chatting with the Thompsons. "I think she was just happy to see me happy, and she was happy in a way she hadn't known was possible." The shadow of Bartholomew MacAllister had faded quickly once word spread that he had been sent to Colorado in disgrace. Victor MacAllister, true to his nature, had prioritized business over his son's wounded pride, and the deal with Samuel Thompson had gone through as planned. The Carters' debt was cleared, and while they would never be wealthy, they could keep their farm. As for Olivia and Owen, they had plans of their own. Owen had been promoted to foreman at the Thompson Ranch, a position that came with better pay and more responsibility. They were saving every penny, working toward the day when they might have enough to buy a small spread of their own. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked as the dance ended and they moved to the edge of the floor. "The future," Olivia replied honestly. "Our future." "Looks bright from where I'm standing," Owen said, his eyes filled with a love that still took her breath away. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and they were finally alone in their cabin, Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the star-filled sky. Owen came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. Olivia turned in his arms to face him. Not one, she assured him, though if you hadn't come along that day on the road. But I did, Owen said firmly. And I always will. The promise in his words filled Olivia with a sense of security she had never known. From the moment of violence that had nearly broken her, she had found her way to a love that made her stronger than she had ever been before. I love you, Owen Miller, she whispered against his lips. And I love you, Olivia Miller, he replied, before carrying his bride to their bed. Spring came to Dakota Territory in a rush of green that transformed the winter-brown prairie into a sea of wildflowers. Olivia stood on the porch of their cabin, one hand resting on her swollen belly, watching as Owen rode in from checking the fence line. The past year had brought changes to both their lives. Owen had continued to excel as foreman, earning Samuel Thompson's trust and respect. Olivia had kept teaching the Thompson children until her pregnancy made it difficult, and now she focused on preparing for their baby's arrival, due in just a few weeks. How are my two favorite people today? Owen called as he dismounted, tying Marigold to the hitching post. Restless, Olivia replied with a smile. Your son has been kicking all morning. Son, is it? Owen grinned, climbing the steps to kiss her. Yesterday you were certain it was a daughter. Today I'm certain it's a boy with his father's restless spirit. Olivia insisted, guiding his hand to feel the movement within her. Owen's expression softened with wonder as he felt their child kick. Even after months of this, it still amazed him every time. I finished the cradle, he told her, leading her inside to where the handcrafted piece stood in the corner of their small home. Samuel helped with the rocker mechanism. It's beautiful. Olivia ran her hand over the smooth wood, appreciating the care that had gone into every detail. Our baby is lucky to have such a talented father. And such a brave mother, Owen added, his expression turning serious. I still think about it sometimes, you know, how differently things could have turned out. Olivia knew what he meant without asking. The memory of Bartholomew MacAllister had faded but not disappeared entirely. They had heard through town gossip that he had married a banker's daughter in Denver, a union that apparently satisfied his father's ambitions for expansion. Olivia could only hope the poor woman was faring better than she would have. We can't live in what-ifs, she reminded Owen, a lesson they had both learned through their journey together. Only in what is. And what was beautiful, a marriage built on mutual respect and deepening love, a home they had created together, and the promise of family stretching out before them. 2 weeks later, after a long labor that tested Olivia's endurance to its limits, their son was born just as dawn broke over the eastern horizon. They named him Samuel John Miller, honoring both the man who had given them their start and Olivia's father. He has your eyes, Olivia murmured drowsily as Owen held their son for the first time, his big hands cradling the tiny bundle with infinite care. And your determination, Owen replied, smiling as the infant gripped his finger with surprising strength. Poor kid didn't want to leave his comfortable quarters. Olivia laughed, then winced as the movement reminded her of the recent ordeal. Can you blame him? The world is a wild place. But a wonderful one too, Owen said, sitting on the edge of the bed to place their son in her arms. And we'll teach him to find the wonder in it. As she looked down at their child, then up at the man she had chosen to build her life with, Olivia felt a completeness she had never imagined possible on that terrible day when Bartholomew MacAllister's violence had sent her fleeing into an uncertain future. I love you, she told Owen, the simple words containing all the gratitude and joy she felt. I love you both, he replied, bending to kiss first her lips, then their son's forehead. My family. When young Samuel was 6 months old, a letter arrived from Samuel Thompson. The rancher had been talking with a bank in Cheyenne about expanding his operations and had an unexpected proposal for Owen and Olivia. He wanted to establish a second, smaller ranch about 20 miles south, on land he had recently acquired. He needed someone he trusted to manage it, someone who understood both cattle and business. "He's offering us a partnership," Owen explained that night after Olivia had read the letter. "We'd live on and manage the property, and after 5 years, we'd own a quarter interest in it." Olivia stared at him in shock. "A quarter interest in a ranch, Owen, that's more than we ever dreamed of saving for." "I know," he agreed, his expression a mix of excitement and caution. "It's an incredible opportunity. But it would mean leaving here, building something from almost nothing. The land has good water and grazing, but there's only a small line cabin on it now." "When has starting from nothing ever scared us?" Olivia asked, shifting their sleeping son in her arms. "We've done it before." Owen smiled at her confidence. "It would be our own place in a way, not just a cabin on someone else's land, but something we're building toward owning." "Then we should do it," Olivia decided. "Samuel deserves to grow up on land his parents are working to own." The move came in early autumn, before the winter snows would make travel difficult. The line cabin was indeed small, just one room with a stone fireplace, but Owen immediately began planning expansions that would give them a proper home by the following summer. The land itself was beautiful, situated in a valley with a clear creek running through it and hills rising to the west that provided shelter from the worst of the winter winds. A small herd of cattle had been moved down from the main Thompson ranch, the nucleus of what would eventually become their own breeding stock. On their first night in their new home, after Samuel was asleep in the cradle Owen had carefully transported from their old cabin, Olivia stood outside under a sky so full of stars it took her breath away. "Having second thoughts?" Owen asked, joining her and wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Not one," she assured him, leaning back against his solid warmth. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. From a bloody-faced girl on the road to a ranchwoman with a home of her own," Owen mused, his arms tightening around her. "It's been quite a journey. And it's only beginning." Olivia turned to face him, her eyes shining in the starlight. "I never thanked you properly, you know." "For what?" "For seeing past the blood and bruises that day. For seeing me." Owen's expression softened with tenderness. "I saw everything that day, your courage, your strength, your beauty despite what he'd done to you. I think I started falling in love with you right then, though I was too stubborn to admit it." "Well, Mr. Miller," Olivia said, rising on her tiptoes to kiss him, "I'm very glad you stopped being stubborn." "So am I, Mrs. Miller," he murmured against her lips. "So am I." The years passed, turning their small beginning into something substantial. The line cabin grew into a proper ranch house, room by room, as Owen found time between his duties to build. Their herd increased, both in number and in quality, as he applied the knowledge he had gained working for the Thompsons. Little Samuel was joined by a sister, Rebecca Aliner, when he was 3, and a brother, William Owen, 2 years after that. Olivia divided her time between caring for the children, maintaining their home, and helping with the ranch accounts, putting to use the skills that had once made her a good teacher. They faced hardships, of course the brutal winter of '86 that nearly wiped out the herd, the dry summer 2 years later when the creek ran low and they feared for their water supply. The time 5-year-old, Samuel fell from a horse and broke his arm, terrifying them both. But they faced each challenge together, their partnership growing stronger with each obstacle overcome. And there were joys, too, the children's first steps and words, the satisfaction of seeing their hard work reflected in the increasing prosperity of the ranch. The quiet moments at day's end when they could still look at each other with the same love that had blossomed in those early, uncertain days. On the 10th anniversary of the day, Owen had found Olivia on the road. They hosted a celebration at the ranch, inviting the Thompsons, Olivia's parents, Margaret and her new husband, and the Hands who had become like extended family over the years. "A toast," Samuel Thompson called, raising his glass as they all gathered around the long table Owen had built for such occasions. "To the finest ranch manager in Dakota Territory and his remarkable wife. What began as a simple partnership has become one of my proudest achievements." "Hear, hear," the others echoed, glasses raised. Later, as the celebration wound down and their guests departed or settled into the bunkhouse for the night, Owen found Olivia sitting on the porch swing he had built for her last birthday. "Happy anniversary," he said, joining her on the swing and handing her a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Owen, you didn't have to. I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "Open it." Inside the paper was a small leather-bound book. Olivia opened it to find blank pages, save for an inscription on the first. "For Olivia, who taught me that the greatest courage is sometimes simply choosing your own path. All my love, Owen." "It's beautiful," she said, tracing the words with her fingertip. "But what is it for?" "For your stories," Owen explained. "You've always said you wanted to write down the tales you tell the children. I thought it was time you had a proper place to do it." Tears filled Olivia's eyes at his thoughtfulness. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll write our story," Owen suggested. "So our grandchildren and their grandchildren will know how it all began. With a cowboy who couldn't ride past someone in trouble." Olivia smiled through her tears. "With a woman brave enough to refuse the wrong man and trust the right one," Owen corrected her, pulling her close. "Everything good in my life began with you, Olivia." As the moon rose over their ranch, casting silver light across the land they had built together, Olivia rested her head on her husband's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. From violence had come rescue, from rescue love, from love a family and a future neither of them could have imagined on that dusty road a decade ago. "I'll write our story," she promised softly. "Though I'm not sure anyone would believe that the worst day of my life led to the best years I could have hoped for." "The truth is often harder to believe than fiction," Owen mused, pressing a kiss to her temple. "But it's the truth all the same." And it was true every moment of their journey together, from that first bloodied encounter to this peaceful evening surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor. As Olivia looked out over their home, at the ranch house glowing with lamplight, the barn where their horses rested, the bunkhouse where their loyal Hands slept, and the distant pastures where their cattle grazed, she felt a contentment so complete it brought fresh tears to her eyes. She had been beaten for refusing the ranch owner's son, and a cowboy had seen her face and rode her away. But the real story, the one she would write in the book Owen had given her, was everything that had come after the love that had healed her wounds, the partnership that had built their home, and the family they had created together, one day at a time. "I love you, Owen Miller," she whispered, the words as true now as they had been the first time she spoke them. "And I love you, Olivia Miller,"